Been a
The Hangout on air is live. That means we are live with Ring the Bell number 12. I am here with my co host Nathan. How are you today, bro?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Not bad at all, man. Not bad at all. I've labelled this week's podcast Too Much Boxing number 3 because this is the third time that there's been multiple shows in multiple countries that make it really hard to cover all of the boxing. But we will do our best this week to get to most of it. I really personally wanted to start with the Sky Sports card and get that out of the way quickly. There were some fights on this one I didn't actually see. So uh, Kais Ashfaq had his second fight, I believe, or was might have actually been his debut. No, it was his second fight, and he won that, but it was against nobody. There was quite a few nothing fights on the start of this card, uh, up until Sam Eggington. And Sam Eggington fought a guy who really, I mean, that's an atrocious record, 21 and 18. But he got the stoppage with a decent, I think he stopped him with a body shot, and then the ref jumped in a few seconds after he knocked him down. So it was a good win, but the level of opposition was not great. Did you catch this fight, Nathan?
I watched a bit of it, but the link I couldn't see the rest of it. But the guy, he looked like he fought. He looked terrible.
Yeah, he wasn't great. He was 21 and 18.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a good start, but it's whatever. Sam Eggington come back from a loss, gets his first win at 154. Hopefully we'll see him in there with better guys than that, because it was over pretty quickly. It wasn't a long fight. It was over in the second round. So a good win for Eggington, but well, not a good win. A solid comeback. It wasn't anything special. Then we had a good win for Conor Benn against Chris Truman. Now
I saw this. Yeah.
this was much better performance from Conor Benn. A much better performance. He looked like he was boxing again and trying to think about what he was doing rather than just swinging wildly. He kind of basically broke Truman down over the 4 rounds, and when he stopped him, Truman just he'd had enough. It was a good win. The level of opposition, a 13 and 8 and 2 guy. Chris Truman's nothing
He was pretty
special.
awful, wasn't he? Really. Really.
Yeah, he's nothing special, but it was an improved performance from Conor Benn, and that's something
When
to
I
take away from it.
when I look at Conor Ben, I struggle to get excited about him. I see a man will be lucky if he gets to a European level. Seriously, I
Well,
don't see the
well,
talent.
here's the really interesting thing, right? I think he's got talent, but he's in the wrong division, and you can see this clearly. I don't know if you see
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah.
boxing
He's too big.
gossips.
I mean, too small for that one. Yeah.
Did you see boxing gossip's brother's picture?
I did, yeah. He's
So
tiny
boxing
compared to.
gossip fights at 140. Boxing gossip's brother fights at 140, I believe. And
He's a
so
super lightweight.
and so for yeah, so for it's an interesting one because for someone of that size to be fighting at welterweight is a problem. They're going to have to cherry pick him small welterweights until he either grows a bit more or puts on muscle. I personally think he's got to cut to 140 because there's no
Why the fuck
way
did they move him up in
they
this
didn't
division in
move
the
him
first
up.
place? I don't.
He started at welterweight.
But then he's sort of couple. I swear, if you look at his record, he had a couple of fights at
Yeah,
lightweight,
no, he's had a couple of
super light.
fights at catch weights at like 144, 145, but he's not actually ever been down at 140.
The thing with him, I find he's just frustrating to watch, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's good, but
This
he's
was
just there's something about
I
him.
think, well, the Paynord fight was frustrating to watch because he got put down a lot. Uh, some of his fights have been frustrating to watch, but I think this one he actually did show a little bit more class, but the level of opposition is so low, it's hard to
I think
tell, isn't it?
the problem. How old is he now? Is he 20 or 21?
21.
We forget how old he is. He's so young, you see. Because
Yeah,
how long has he been
he
playing?
didn't.
3 years now. 2 years.
2 years. He didn't have an amateur career really either, not a real one. So it is hard to judge him harshly yet. He's the same sort of. He needs to do the same thing as Yard. He'll have 20 fights before he really steps up against anyone truly tough. So
We'll
yeah,
see what happens. I'm an open book when it comes to it.
yeah. Same. I'm open-minded. I hope he does well, but I think he's in the wrong division. I don't think he's big enough for 147. I think everybody can see that at the moment. A big welterweight would just iron him out. Imagine,
I'd agree with that.
yeah, Errol Spence. Jesus Christ. Like you wouldn't put him anywhere near those guys. I wouldn't
he's
even.
about 4 years away from any sort of level of that.
I wouldn't even put him in with Bradley Skeet or there's a lot of guys. It's going to be hard to build him and find him interesting fights that he won't lose because he's quite a small welterweight. So it's an odd one. I do look forward to watching him sometimes. He does have some athleticism that's interesting to see, but he's not his dad.
If his name wasn't Ben, people wouldn't watch him.
I agree.
People would even care.
I agree. He'd be a somewhat prospect, wouldn't he? He'd just be like a mediocre prospect, but he's got all this hype because of his name, and it is unfair on him.
But then when you look at other welterweights like Bradley Skeet, who should have more.
Oh, 100%. Bradley Skeet should have more press, but more people know Conor Benn for sure, I guess.
But the fact that Bradley Skeet's about to fight for a world title and he's never mentioned is shocking, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's got a lot to do with BT. I think, do you have BT Sports?
I have Box Nation, but I don't have BT Sport.
Yeah, I think some of the advertisements and I don't know how it works because obviously I'm in Cambodia. I don't really get the adverts, so I don't.
Box Nation, it's a bit weak. Box Nation with some of the stuff they put out has been really weak.
I think so. I think it's a weak value proposition right now. This is probably a topic for another time, but
it is definitely. Yeah.
But I think because the way BT's deal has worked out, it
hasn't worked out at all.
Well, I think it's worked out in a sense for BT, but it's going to screw over Box Nation because why would anybody need Box Nation if they already have a BT subscription?
That is the problem.
Yeah, that's a big problem. But we'll definitely discuss that another time. We should move on to the Scott Fitzgerald Laszlo Fazekas fight. Now, I didn't actually see this one.
Neither did I.
The referee scored it very wide for Scott Fitzgerald. I'm not surprised. He goes 9-0. The guy he beat is now 31-31.
The guy he beat lost to Malignaggi a couple of years ago. Do you remember?
Yes. He's had a lot of losses since then. Like a lot. Like he's fought like a journeyman on the road, just losing.
Was it 2017 he fought Malignaggi?
2015. And at that point, right, he was when he fought Malignaggi, he didn't have that bad a record. I can't see it here, but he's fought so many guys since then, and he's had a lot of losses since then. So yeah, it's not great. It's not great viewing. Terrible fight. I hope they start stepping Scott Fitzgerald. I didn't even watch it, and I know it was probably a terrible fight. They need to start stepping Scott Fitzgerald up into better fights at this point. He's somewhat talented from what I've been watching. He's 10-0. He's 26, and they've got.
I've never watched him fight. I should do, but I should know who he is.
I saw him fight on the Goodison Park on the Tony Bellew show, and he looked all right. And then I saw him fight Adam Jones in a fight that he got dropped in that one, if I remember, but he still won convincingly on the card. And Adam Jones is terrible, but to get dropped by him was quite funny. But Scott Fitzgerald's not bad. He's fighting terrible opposition. 31 and 30. It's not. It's hard. It's really hard. This whole Sky card is actually full of fights like this. The next fight we're going to move on to at rapid pace is Anthony Fowler versus Ryan Toms, and this was obviously going to be a win for Anthony Fowler. Ryan Toms was 15 and 14. He's not as bad as some of the other guys on the card because he's had, some of his losses are to top British level opposition, so it's not awful, but it's not great
You could
either.
basically call this card a slightly higher value next gen card, couldn't you? Really?
It really was, man. It really was. The only two fights that were worth a fucking crap we're coming to in a second, and one of them wasn't worth a crap anyway. Natasha Jonas versus Tusi Lahaji.
Didn't even bother watching this.
Oh, it was really bad. The thing is, if you're trying to build women's boxing, you can't put on fights like this. This poor woman, she was 5, 6 and 1. Poor lass. She has no defense. Absolutely terrible. And you're putting her in there against someone, this was for a vacant WBA international title. It's fucking shocking. I gotta be honest. I'm very down about this Sky Sports card. I thought it was pretty poor all round. There are a couple of good fights on it, but really, this was just a ticking over card to get Amir Khan back out, which we will come on to with rapid fire to get past this
card. Shall we talk about the Masha Dodd fight because that was a much more better fight than the Khan fight?
Well, we'll come to the Masha Dodd fight afterwards. We'll stick with the show order, just not to confuse shit. Amir Khan, Phil LaGreco. What a war. What a legacy building fight this was. What a terrific comeback. What a masterclass. No, in all seriousness, what the fuck was this? Khan looked fast. He did look fast, but Eddie Hearn trying to hype up this shit like fucking, oh, the speed. Did you see the speed? It's like, yeah, we saw the speed. The fight was over in fucking 20 seconds. Is that the speed you're talking about? My God.
I thought LaGreco was better than this. I thought it was terrible. I expected LaGreco to at least last 6 or 7 rounds.
Getting iced by Amir Khan is not a good look, is it?
No. Amir used to knock people out like that, like 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, LaGreco went to a points decision with Sean Porter. And
that's what I mean, yeah.
You'd think Sean Porter would have more power than Amir Khan, right? But obviously...
But he doesn't.
I mean, it must have been 1-4. Yeah, it's an odd one. It's an odd one. I was impressed with Khan's speed, but you can't take anything from this fight. He caught LaGreco cold, basically. LaGreco probably didn't warm up in the changing room enough. That's kind of what I imagine, because he didn't really even get hit that hard. I know he got hit fast, but Khan's not that powerful. So I think LaGreco got caught cold a little bit. Terrible fight.
He talked a good game in the build.
He did. He did, but it was that was a shit show. Hopefully Khan fights Brook next, but I don't think.
What about the confrontation in the ring?
Yeah, for me it didn't seem like Khan was all that keen on it. He handled it well. He spoke well. But I don't really think he enjoyed that very much. I don't think he wants...
No. I think we all know what would happen if Khan get in there. It would be over in 3 or 4 rounds. Khan would get knocked out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind.
Have you seen the size of Brook? Brook looks a lot bigger than Khan, don't he?
He is a monster compared to Khan. He always was.
This is the thing. But the crazy thing is, I didn't realise how. I mean, obviously, Kell Brook isn't as shot worn as what Khan is.
We don't know that. You just can't take anything from this Khan fight. He looked okay, but we just can't. We need to see, I would actually like to see Khan fight the winner of the Bro. I think Broner and Vargas might have a rematch as they, fought to a draw.
Would you
And
pick Khan to beat Broner? Because I
yes,
don't think you could.
yes,
It'd be
I
a
think
big if.
no, not really. I don't think there's a big if about that. I think Broner's low work rate, low. He's not very powerful, especially if the fight's at 147. I think
But Broner's a
I
lot
think
tougher than Khan. He can take punishment at a
doesn't really
punch, whereas
matter.
Khan
He
don't.
he can't really box as well as Khan, and he's
No, he
lazy.
can't.
We'll come to it
But I can
later.
still
We'll,
see him
we'll
knocking Khan
discuss.
out. Okay.
I would be more scared about putting Khan in with Vargas than I would about Broner. He could knock Khan out, but LaGreco could have. Anyone can knock Amir Khan out.
I know
That's
that's the thing.
that's the truth of it. So you can't be scared about that every fight. I think he's
So,
got the
do you
skill
think
to do to Broner what he did to
Amir will look at?
Devin Alexander. No, I don't think he'd
Do you
knock
think
Broner out.
Khan, if he doesn't take the Brook fight, do you think he would look at fighting the winner of Matisse and Pacquiao? Have a big fight.
I've
Pacquiao,
heard
that'd be
about
good, wouldn't
this, but that's a terrible idea. Like you wanna keep Amir Khan's chin as safe as possible. So you do not want to
it?
put him in there with Matisse because Matisse is still powerful and Pacquiao's
Yeah,
still pretty powerful.
but
Power's the last thing to go in
yeah,
an aging fighter.
but Khan knows Pacquiao's game so well; they know each other inside out.
I suppose I would say you could give him the Pacquiao fight, but Pacquiao's kind of shot. You won't get a lot of credit for beating him, and you'll look like a mug if you get knocked out. I would say Broner, Brook, Hurd. They're the three options out there for him. He'll probably
Oh,
get
Hurd would kill him.
he'll probably get knocked out in most fights, but I'm talking about big money, like what he's going to
Yeah,
do to make
Kell
his
Brook.
retirement check. I think really we all just want to see the Kell Brook fight in the
We do.
UK, but I'd be happy to see Broner. That's not a bad fight. I mean, I think
it would be a more winnable fight for him. It'd be a winnable fight for him.
that's what I mean. And if he looks good in the Broner, like if he can beat Broner, it would make the Brook pay-per-view huge because that Phil Greco fight has done nothing. The
But
Khan fanboys are like, yeah, he looks great. So, what? How do you know? He's fought nobody yet. Like David Hay looked great against fucking Arnold
the Cobra.
Cope. Right, he looked great too, but you just can't make predictions based on that. So it was an all right win. He looked speedy, but he needs a big fight. I don't think he's ready for the Brook fight yet.
I mean, could they put him in a European level fight? A European title fight. I know that wouldn't be what
it would be better than Phil LaGreco, wouldn't it? Anything that's a step up from Phil LaGreco. Are you thinking Mimoun, the guy who beat Eggington? Because that would be
an IBO title fight. Yeah.
That'd be a real good fight.
Or if not, stick him in there with.
They're both really speedy boxers, so that would be great.
Or if not, put Bradley Skeet in there with him. I think Bradley Skeet.
I do too. I think Bradley Skeet would win, and because Bradley Skeet's on BT, it's unlikely to happen.
Or if they got Eggington to step down again, get Eggington to step down and wait and take this fight. That would be great.
No, I don't think that's a good idea for either man because neither man will get a lot of credit from that fight. I mean, Eggington would get a lot of credit if he won. I don't think Khan would get much credit if he won.
But
you would
love to see it, though, wouldn't you?
I would love to see it, but it's not realistic, I don't think. I think Khan is looking for the big paydays, and Eggington does not represent that, really. I think
he's just a dangerous fighter.
Sure, you could get knocked out against Eggington and made to look foolish, whereas Mimoun is not a power puncher. So you would think that Amir Khan would probably have the beating of Mimoun over 12 rounds, but it'd be a good style matchup because they're both back foot boxers, so it'd be quite interesting.
I still don't think Khan's the fighter he was 5 years ago. I still think,
but nobody is. Nobody is the fighter they were 5 years ago. The question is, can he be good enough to beat the current fighters now? I think he can beat. I think he can beat certain fighters. I think he can beat Broner. I think he could probably have a good fight against Brook for a few,
Yeah,
like
he
at
hasn't
least.
got another world title in him, though. Yeah, I don't think he's got another world title in him at all.
No, maybe not. Not at 147 and not at 154. So no, not really. He doesn't. You're right. But he's got some big fights left, some big paydays left. So now we'll come on to the biggest fight of the night, or the main event, and what was actually the best fight of the night: Sean Dodd, Tommy Coyle, for this Sky card at least. Uh, good win from Tommy Coyle, in my opinion. Probably his best ever performance. I don't
That
know
is
if
his
that's
biggest win of his career,
yeah,
next to Casidas.
yeah. The Casidas win was big, but I think this was his best performance in terms of he had the perfect game plan. He boxed slickly at times. He had good combos. He boxed from range, moved in, came out. The knockdowns were brutal as well. I think we've got to give a lot of credit to Sean Dodd to even get up from two of those
From the fourth
knockdowns.
round. From the fourth round. That was that. The
The
box.
fourth and the sixth rounds, the final knockdown where he got up but then got stopped a few seconds later. I thought he was going to need a stretcher, let alone being able to beat the 10 count. So Dodd is a tough man. He can come back. He can fight at British level. No problem with that. I'll watch Dodd again. He's entertaining. But big props to Tommy Coyle. Great win.
Great performance.
He can move on to European level, really, I think.
Do you get the feeling with Tommy Coyle that his career goes one step forward and one step back all the time? He's always,
That's the truth of it, isn't it? Because he's had a few Commonwealth title defeats. He's had the big fight, with Luke Campbell at Craven Park, which was that was a good fight, actually, looking back on it now. He had the loss to Tyrone Nurse. Tyrone Nurse is a good boxer on his day. He had the tough loss to Derry Matthews and Gary Sykes, but he's got some good wins as well. So he is an odd guy.
He's another Eglinton, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, he is. He's an odd guy, but in terms of this Commonwealth belt, he can. Yeah. Well, he's
first major belt that he's won.
Definitely first major belt that he's won. Because he has won. He has won some stuff. I think he had the vacant IBF International title for a while. So he's had some stuff, but I agree. This is a big win, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from here, actually, because he could defend the Commonwealth to win it outright, or he could move on to European level. He's actually ranked in the top 25 of the world for that division. So that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, there's some big fights out there for him. It would be interesting to see where he goes from here. Unlucky for Sean Dodd, but he can come again. It wasn't too tough a defeat. Some heavy knockdowns, but I think he's a tough man. So yeah, we can move on to. I was gonna look next at the Frampton Donaire card. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
So, what fights did you actually see on this card?
So I didn't. Let me look. So I saw the Frampton fight. Obviously, I saw the Tete fight or bits of it.
Yeah.
I think what other fights were on it at the
Conrad.
Because I think I might.
Conrad Cummings versus Luke Keeler.
I didn't watch that. No.
Tyrone McKenna versus Anthony Upton.
No. So just be the top two I watched.
Yes, fair. So I did see the Luke Keeler Conrad Cummings fight. Luke Keeler won in a real tough war. I'd advise people to go and watch that fight. He won it clearly, but both eyes were mangled. It was a pretty good scrap, actually. I didn't see the Upton McKenna fight. I will go back and watch that. I think I predicted Upton I can't remember. I'm not sure who I predicted to win that fight. It might have been McKenna. but I might just be trying to take credit for something I didn't do. So I'll have to go back and check that out at some point. Yeah, it was a bit annoying. There was so much boxing this weekend. It was hard to catch all of it, as you know. Tete versus Narvaez. I saw
Oh,
some of
yawn,
this fight. Oh, Ringo.
yawn, yawn.
Yeah, this was people give do you remember when people used to give Lara and Rigondo a hard time for just
Oh yeah.
winning boring fights? That's exactly what this Tete fight was. No wonder no one really wants to fight this guy. He's got power and he can knock you out, and he's got skills and he can beat you easily on points. I mean, Omar Andres Navarez is well past it. Well past it. The guy's a 42-year-old bantamweight.
What?
It's unheard of, isn't it?
Oh
So
dear.
that's what we're talking about here. So terrible matchup. A good enough win. I mean, he won every round. He 12-0'd it on every judge's scorecard. And so it's just one of those fights where it's like, okay, Frank Warren really has to start paying out the big bucks to get the McDonald's, the Inoues, someone to fight Tete that's interesting.
Or Tete should just leave and do what any normal guy would. Get away from Frank Warren.
It's hard once you sign a contract, bro. It's not as straightforward as that.
As we know, Frank likes to sue everybody.
It's true. Frank has sued a lot of people. The only good fight that Frank Warren gave Tete was Paul Butler. After that, it's just been terrible. It's been okay. It's been okay. There's been Victor Ruiz was an all right fight. Arthur Villanueva was an okay fight, but that Gonya fight and this Narvaez fight, he's going backwards, isn't he?
Pitiful. Yeah.
It's going backwards. So he needs to be stepped up, not stepped down. I'm sick. I'm kind of done with Tete until they put him in a big fight.
I get the feeling that his career is this is going to be the pattern of his career, and it's going to sail him by.
Possibly. I really hope not. There's some big fights out there with Burnett, with Zaki Arnott. You know, there's big fights out there for him, but he's just not in any of them. It's an odd one. It's an odd situation. Carl Frampton versus Nonito Donaire. This was a good fight. This was probably the fight of the weekend, I would say. Donaire was a little bit more past it than I thought he would be. But this is to take nothing away from Frampton. Frampton dominated the early rounds, similar to what he did in his last fight. But he had more stamina in this fight. He didn't fade after round 6 or round 7. He kept his pace until about round 10 or round 11, where Donaire probably came into the fight, you know, in those last 2 rounds. Maybe Carl Frampton gave him another round somewhere in the middle of the fight, you know, but really, Frampton dominated this fight. I think, you know, Donaire's probably done now in terms of top level. Maybe he'll have one last big fight in the Philippines before he retires. But in terms of world title level, in terms of, you know, because this was for the interim world WBO world featherweight, wasn't it? So Frampton's the interim champion now. I don't think Donaire's going to be at world title level again.
No, I did read that he's going to step down a division.
Donaire?
Yeah.
Yeah, this wasn't his weight class as well. I think that's another thing that's fair to say is that
he was always too small, yeah.
Yeah, he was never going to be. I mean, Frampton's a small featherweight as well, but this just wasn't Donaire's weight class. He's used to bullying people, and he couldn't bully Frampton as much as he is used to doing. It was a good fight, though. I definitely did think Donaire took, 3 rounds. Maybe
I think
4.
Frampton should stay away from Valdez.
Possibly.
Go for that Santa Cruz fight.
I worry even in the Santa Cruz rematch because I worry for Frampton a lot, really. At the top level, you cannot fade for 2 rounds of a fight. You will get caught out. And so this was a good fight for him because it has shown him he still needs to improve his stamina to be a 12-round fighter again. If you're not a 12-round fighter and you're carrying a world title, someone's going to nick it off you in those final 2 rounds.
Yeah.
That's just...
Isn't it worth him revisiting the Quigg rematch? Just
yes.
a quick money spinner.
Yes, 100%. It's a big fight. It's probably a very winnable, easy fight for him again. I rate Quigg, but I just think Frampton has his number in terms of skill set and ability. Quigg's gone backwards in his career. Frampton's gone sideways, but not as far backwards as Quigg's gone. And so you would imagine Frampton would win that and make a lot of money, and it would give him another 12-week camp, get him prepared for either the Santa Cruz fight or the winner of Selby-Warrington, which is another big fight.
Which is a fight which I think is more realistic. I think that's
well, of course.
I could see him beating Selby. I think he's got more talent than Selby. I've always thought he had.
No, disagree. I just disagree massively. I think he had more talent than Selby. I don't think he does now. I think Selby's the fresher fighter. He's had Selby's won
but
most
Selby
of his fights.
hasn't had the tough career that Frampton's had.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. He's not had the wars, and so he's not been worn down. Frampton's a much smaller guy. You've got to look at the height difference between them. It's huge. Selby's a big featherweight. So for me, it's a real easy fight for Selby. I'd predict late stoppage, really. I think Selby's the man in that division. I think people sleep on him because he's been in some boring fights recently, but I think he's going to demolish Warrington.
He always skips my mind. I mean, I have to be honest. I often forget
because he's not very entertaining, is he? As a personality, he's just a real boring Welshman. He's a bit like Ryan Giggs. He's like the Ryan Giggs of boxing. Ryan Giggs was a great footballer, but if you interview him, he was dull, real dull. And so is Selby. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. I do think he's the man to beat in that division, and I think he'll show it against Warrington quite convincingly. I don't think Warrington. It's a BT Box Nation show. So maybe Frank's paid off the judges, but I don't think even that is going to help Warrington beat Selby personally. I think Selby's just too good.
What is Warrington? I mean, he's European level.
Yes, that's exactly what I was having a conversation with Stay Robinson the other day about this fight. And I was just saying Warrington's failed to impress at European level. He struggled at European level, and he looked all right. But that's sort of what he found his level in some of those fights, And I think Selby's just going to outclass him.
What does Steve Robinson know? He's an American.
Oh no, he was asking about it. He wasn't.
Oh dear.
He wasn't putting his input in. He was just wondering if Warrington's a real fight for Selby, and I was saying not really. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it's.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. So that takes us nicely onto a real good card. This was probably the best card of the weekend. Maybe not the best fight, but the best card altogether. The American card. What fights on this card did you see?
I saw the Davis fight. I saw the Broner fight and the
Charlo fight.
Yeah.
Right. There's 2 fights extra that I quickly wanted to touch on. Rousey Warren had a good unanimous decision win, 8-0 over Juan Gabriel Medina. So there's a good comeback performance for him. I'm interested to see what he does in the bantamweight division. He's not bad. He's not amazing, but he's not shit. And he could be a decent talent. He's got skills. He's got the skills to pay the bills. I wonder if he's got the chin. I wonder if he's got the heart. I'm not sure. We'll find out. Heather Hardy also had a unanimous decision win. A little bit of a closer fight. 78-74, 78-74, 79-73. But she won the vacant NABF female featherweight title against Iranda Paula Torres. decent enough win. She looks somewhat of a talent. I'd be really worried, like, to put Natasha Jonas in with her, but Katie Taylor, that's a good fight in the future. I'd be interested in seeing it. I'd be interested in seeing it for sure. But I think, Katie Taylor's a bit heavier. I'm not 100% on the weight class issue.
She's lightweight, yeah, I believe.
Yeah, it's not a huge difference. It's like one division, but it's still in women's boxing. I don't really know if they move weights a lot. I've got no real idea. I think
We're
if you
pretty
ask,
blind with
yeah,
women's boxing, aren't we? To be honest,
all I know is if you ask a woman to put on 7 pounds, she's probably going to fucking laugh at you. So I don't really know how that will go. If a trainer goes, "Could you put on 7 pounds?" Most women aren't going to be happy to hear that, are they? So, you know what I'm saying, though. That is true.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. You could ask a guy to put on 7 pounds, and he's like, "Yeah, whatever." You ask a woman to put on 7 pounds, does she have the same response? I don't know. I'm not a boxing trainer who trains women. Maybe they're fine with it, but who knows? Jamel Charlo, Hugo Centeno Jr. This fight was over quickly. The thing is, right, Centeno Jr. He's had good wins, like some good wins. I thought he was going to be better than this. I thought this was a shocker. Like he's kind of like the Amir Khan of middleweight. He's got skills, he's got footwork, he's got speed, but as soon as he stops to trade for an exchange, he got knocked the fuck out. Like he got Price knocked out, didn't he? He was literally stunned on his feet, out cold, and then he took another combo. That's sort of the David Price special, that is. So, yeah, it was an odd one. It was an odd one. Good win for Charlo over a somewhat named opponent, but Jesus, there was a weird finish to that fight, in my opinion. Centeno Jr. shouldn't have been looking to trade at any point in that fight, let alone early doors. It was a real stupid move from him. And Charlo does look powerful at that weight class, to be fair, and snappy.
But I don't think he beats Triple G.
No.
I just don't see it.
I think a good fight for Charlo next is Daniel Jacobs. That's a 50-50 fight. I don't know who wins that. I can't call it. I think
my head would say Jacobs.
Same, just because he's the bigger man and he's been at middleweight longer. You'd think Jacobs will fight at 168 before he retires, whereas Charlo might not. So I agree.
Charlo's they're on the up. The Charlo's on the up. They're both how old is Charlo? 25.
No, Jamal was a bit older now. I think let me check. He's 27. I think Jamel is
just the right
younger
age
brother.
To come to his prime.
100%. Don't get me wrong. Jamal Charlo impresses me more and more every fight. I want to see him fight Daniel Jacobs next. I think that's a real good test for both of them. I think Jacobs needs a big fight. Charlo needs a big fight. GGG and Canelo are tied up. Billy Joe Saunders is tied up with Murray. Might as well make that Jacobs fight after he beats the hell out of Sulecki or whatever the fuck guy Jacobs is fighting next. Sulecki. Jesus. So yeah, good win for Charlo. Not super impressive, but decent enough. Hugo Centeno Jr. needs to go, maybe move down a weight class if he's getting knocked out that easily at 160. He's always been a 160. Oh, no. He used to fight at 154. I think if he can go back down to 154, he should, because Charlo's not the most powerful 160 out there. And, this Sulecki guy who Daniel Jacobs is fighting has knocked out Centeno Jr. in the past as well. So maybe Sulecki's not such a bad fight. I haven't really looked into Sulecki enough. I just know that I hadn't heard of him massively before this fight. I knew he beat Jack Coyle, but other than that, I didn't even know he'd beaten Hugo Centeno Jr. before, to be honest. So it's an odd one. Adrian Broner, Jesse Vargas. What did you make of this one? This is where
I enjoyed it.
It was a good enough fight. But for me, Fucking hell, Adrian Broner. You're just a lazy bastard, aren't you? Like, there are rounds that he could have won with 5% more effort. He could have
He's
won
just
that
going
fight.
for the emotions, wasn't he? He was just going for the
100%.
emotion.
I personally scored the fight 115, 113 to Vargas. What about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Yeah, I can understand a draw. I really can. I cannot see how Broner won 7 rounds. He's just too low work rate. Vargas dominated the first 6 rounds, really, with the jab, not really doing much, just consistency. And then Broner turned it on. He did come back into the fight, but it was sort of a little bit too little, too late, in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I just feel with Broner, the more time I watch him, the more times I think he's lost interest in it. He doesn't want to be in it.
I've lost interest with him. I'm done with him now.
So have I.
He doesn't care about this sport at all. He was in there like, this is what all the comments. I was watching a video on YouTube of the fight, and all the comments were like, "I just wish Adrian Broner gave a shit." Maybe not all the comments, but there were a few people ripping him. But
he gave up the minute he lost to Maidana. That's when his heart went out the window. He hasn't been the same since.
Do you think it's the Mayweather effect of sort of you have to be an undefeated fighter to be sort of top dog?
I think Mayweather thing. He's still promoted by Mayweather, isn't he?
I'm not sure because Mayweather called him out hard recently. Hard, man. Like saying this fight should be at 147. I don't know why it's not. So if he was promoting him, you'd think that he'd make the fight at 147. So I don't know.
The problem is Broner in his career, he kind of got to think, I don't need Mayweather or anybody anymore to tell me how to run my career, and it's backfired.
The thing is, though, as soon as he went up, I thought he was going to lose to Maidana because he was so small.
Exactly.
He was never going to be a welterweight. He just went to welter. I think he spent too much of his career trying to replicate Mayweather, trying to copy Mayweather, and then he doesn't know how to be Adrian Broner. I don't think he knows who Adrian Broner is in terms of the boxing persona. He's tried to copy that shoulder roll, and he can't do it not as well.
I used to know who he was about 7-8 years ago when he came on the scene. He was the young brush fighter who was destined for great things.
Sure, but in terms of now, it's like it's hard to really give a shit because he doesn't give a shit.
He's lucky that he's won those 4 world titles, and I hope he saved his money. That's all I'm going to say.
He hasn't. That's why he's still fighting.
Oh dear.
Otherwise, he doesn't love this sport, man. He doesn't even care about making a certain weight class. He's just like, whatever weight class, I'll come in overweight if I want. I'll just pay a small fight. He's an odd man. He's an odd man. It's hard to get behind him, especially with all his legal troubles as well. He's an idiot.
I used to like him, but I think in about the next decade, he'll be in an obituary.
He's going to be forgotten about fast because there's been a lot of boxers like him who promised the world, all the everything, and haven't delivered.
We know how his life's going to end up. He's going to be one of those guys that does a long stretch in prison. When he comes out, he'll be the guy in the gym, and they'll say that guy used to be a world champion 20 years ago.
Yeah,
that's all he'll be.
I sadly hope that isn't the path he goes down. Maybe if he has 1 or 2 more big, he's still got a name in the sport. He can still make some fights, and so I think
he's blowing it, and he's running out of time.
Yeah. I think he can get a rematch with Jesse Vargas due to this draw, but I think Vargas beats him, especially if they force the fight to happen at 147. I think Vargas will be too big for him at that point.
I don't think there will be a rematch, to be honest. I'd like to see one, but I don't think there will be one.
Well, a draw is like kissing your sister, man. Well, I'm hearing talks of the Adrian Broner Amir Khan fight, and I think
I'd like to see that.
It's a good fight. I think Amir Khan.
Wouldn't you like to see
schools Broner?
Adrian Broner come to England? I'd love to see that. him come to?
Yeah, I think you could get him over for the right money as well at this
I
point
think
in
you'd
his
like it.
career.
I think you'd like it if you can. I think people in Britain, once he got here, they'd probably like him.
I think they'd give him a less hard time than he gets in America at the moment, for sure. I think he could do with a big UK fight. You're right. It would actually it could revigorate. Remember what it did for Linares.
Oh
His
God, yeah.
fights in Britain sort of propelled him into that Lomachenko fight. So, yeah, Adrian Broner could come over here and knock out Amir Khan in front of his home fans and reignite his career. It would be a big statement for him, but
Do you
I
think
just
Eddie
don't
would
know.
ever give him a go? Eddie would
Yeah.
ever consider promoting him?
He,
Do you think
no,
Eddie should?
no, 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 he's a fool. He's a fool. Not
Did you
really,
hear
man,
what he said to
because yeah, I heard what he said about Mexicans after the fight as well.
no Elbury? He said, you know, Elbury, Mayweather's henchman.
Ellaby, yeah, Ellaby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the words he muttered were, "Shut your mouth, you lazy n."
Right.
And Elbury said, "Don't talk to me like that."
But he also said, let's go to my town. I want to fight him where I'm from. There's hella Mexicans in here booing me and shit. They want some rice and chicken. That's
Oh
not.
dear.
Yeah. He also made a remark where he appeared to confuse black rights advocate Martin Luther King with Rodney King, a taxi driver who became the face of Los Angeles police brutality when a video emerged of officers beating him in '91. I beat him like I was using what they used to beat Martin Luther King, Broner said. The American
Oh.
also said, going at it is gay. Unsurprisingly, Broner was criticized for his comments. He's a
Is
fucking
he?
moron.
Is he a fucking retard? Is he a
Yes.
twat?
Yeah, he's a moron. He's a
I, I,
moron.
I,
He's a moron.
he,
He's just so ignorant. It's unbelievable. He
he's
fought
thick as well, isn't he? He's a bit thick,
Martin
isn't he?
Luther King and Rodney King. He confused them
Oh,
two and made a joke about
twat.
Rodney.
Well, you
Like,
can't.
oh,
It's
Adrian
not even
Broner,
funny,
man.
is it?
No, it's not
Shut it.
funny.
Yeah.
It's funny that he's that stupid, but
That's what I mean. Yeah.
it's not funny actually. So no, I don't think Hearn should promote him. I think Adrian Broner brings trouble to whoever is near him. Basically, I don't think he's a good egg at this moment in time. I think he's just a problem.
He's just embarrassing.
Can you imagine if Anthony
really?
Joshua said something like that about Martin Luther King? He'd be
Or Stephen Lawrence.
he'd be fucking railroaded in the press. And
Yeah.
Adrian Broner has been too, but it will be forgotten about and forgiven sooner or later, and people will be talking about Broner's next assault charges instead. So it it is an odd career Adrian Broner has had at this point, and I do wish him the best. I hope he can sort it out, but I don't think he will. I think he's gonna do
It's
some
going to
more.
get worse.
I think he'll do some more crazy shit, have another fight where he just doesn't really put the effort in, and people will just forget about him over time.
I
Sad
agree.
but true. Sad but true. Then we come on a much more positive note to Gervonta Davis versus Jesus Marcelo Andres Coyle. This was a good win for Davis. He is fucking powerful at 130, right?
Very powerful, yeah.
He sort of bullied Coyle down in round two. It wasn't even like it wasn't necessarily snappy power shots, but he just sort of bludgeoned him over, which is impressive for a featherweight to be able to do. Then he knocked him down twice in round three, and the fight was basically just that was it. It was done, and I think it was rightly so. Great stoppage win over a fairly good named opponent in that division. Gervonta Davis, he's the man to beat around that division. I know I said Selby is as well, but Selby's weight class
I
below,
think he'd
right?
beat. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think he'd beat Selby easily. Seriously.
I think he'd have troubles, man, because he's 5'5" and a half.
I know he's tiny.
Yeah, this is the issue. Selby is really tall for the weight. He's 5'8" and a half. For a featherweight, that's real tall.
That's huge.
Yeah, and so at super featherweight, you'd imagine Selby would put on a lot more muscle. I don't know, man. I think that's a great fight for the future. I think Davis might have the edge, but
There's something
it's a
that's
good fight.
troubling me with Davis is there may be trouble ahead for him because he may be leaving the Mayweather camp, and he's also associated himself with Broner. So to me, this just causes a problem.
Yeah, I suppose. You know, I can't see why he'd leave Mayweather. Mayweather's done right by him so far. He's got him world titles. He's got him big fights, paid him well. I, he's built him into someone that everyone's talking about. So I don't really see why you'd want to leave now. It'd be a
All
bad
this is
decision.
explained on my main event podcast. I did a show with Too Tough Spencer.
I'll have
he
a
was telling
watch
me
of it.
that he was telling me that somebody like Davis who came up with nothing, they had the mentality that the mindset he might not have the right mindset. Do you know what I mean? To make rational decisions sometimes.
Yeah, but it's sometimes not. I mean, Anthony Joshua wasn't brought up the right way, and yet he knows to stay with Eddie Hearn because Eddie Hearn's done right by him.
Making him a lot of money, yeah.
Right. So it's not necessarily just it's not just logic, it's a loyalty thing. Like, why are you gonna leave someone when they're not doing you bad? If they're fucking you over, like you know, like Romain Stavern has sued Don King, and yet he's still promoted by Don King. It's like, why? You're an idiot. Fucking. Actually, it's not just that Romain Stavern sued Don King. They've sued each other.
Oh, it's stupid, isn't it?
And they're still working together. I could understand why they would want to leave, but whilst Mayweather's doing the right thing, it's like you always talk about, is David Haye the right guy for Joe Joyce, for example? Well, so far, it's not been terrible. He's managed to get the Lewison fight, and now he's got him a Commonwealth title shot. So he's doing okay. So there's no point leaving now. If in 5 fights' time there's problems, then I can understand. But whilst think you shouldn't fix something that isn't broken, is basically what I'm saying in a very long-winded way. Why try and fix something that isn't fucked up? So yeah, that's bad. That is bad news. I agree with you. I will go and watch your podcast with Too Tough Spencer to hear his take on it. It is interesting.
But I see Davis is good fighter.
Yeah, he's quality. He's looking. He's doing all the right things. I hope he doesn't split with Mayweather, and unless something's going on behind the scenes, like maybe Mayweather's taking a huge cut of his purse. We don't know.
We don't know, but for the detriment of his career, it might be best if he keeps his mouth shut for a couple more years, earn some money, and just get the rack at the wins. And then when he's become a slightly bigger name, then look.
He does have a slight problem because his next fight, he's really got to take a big fight. There's not many guys out there. So you've got Brigando, who's recently lost a fight, so it's sort of hard to make that fight. Miguel Burkelt, Lomachenko, Alberto Mercado. These are all big, tough fights. So, or Francisco Vargas, you could put him in there with Francisco Vargas too. So,
but he's not ready for the Lomachenko.
Or even, what about Uriakis? What about Gamboa? That's not a bad fight either.
That would be a good fight. That would be a good learning fight.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good fights out there in the top 15 for him still, but at some point he's going to have to start taking those top 5 fights. When you become champion, eventually one of those guys will become your mandatory. Like, it's just the way the world works. So.
Because how old is he? 22?
23, I believe. Let me just check. 23.
I don't think his career will be steered that way for a couple of years. I think they'll just keep him where he is.
Yeah, you've got to keep him fighting. I agree. I was just looking at the top, the top list of that division. Let me go back to it quickly. And there's some they can make big fights in the top 15. Jason Sosa, Orlando Salido, Gamboa. He's just beaten Coyle, but they could even make the Rigondeaux fight. Rigondeaux's still a credible opponent in any sense of the word. Maybe Martin Joseph Ward, if he gets another big win, he'll move up into the top 15. He could even get a shot.
One thing, Riggindale fights at super bantamweight.
He's listed here as a super featherweight. He's in the top. He's in the top 10. Well, he fought Lomachenko at 130, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll stay at one. I don't think he'll stay at 130 though. So you are probably right. He probably will go back down to 126, but it's still an option. If that, it's still a possibility. It would be a decent enough. If you can beat Rigondeaux, even coming off a loss, it's still a huge, huge win. So, yeah, good things ahead for Gervonta Davis. I'm interested to see where he goes next. There was one other fight I wanted to talk about really quickly. Masternak, he won fairly convincingly over Yuri Kalenga. Yeah, it was for the vacant World Boxing Organization European Cruiserweight title. And so I didn't actually see all of the fight, but I
saw bits of it.
Yeah, I know. Slow, right? Yeah, it was mashed up. Yeah, mashed up. The other fight on the card, this one I did actually see the knockout for. This was the one I wanted to talk about. 60-year-old Thomas Adamek knocked out Joey Abel. No, 41-year-old Thomas Adamek knocked out Joey Abel in a terrible fight. Super slow, very slow paced. I can't even really see Thomas Adamek as a real heavyweight.
He needs to try. He never was a heavyweight.
No. I know. He's 6'1", and he's pretty small for a heavyweight.
Even when he was at light heavyweight, he looked small. When he was at cruiserweight, he looked small. He won. Obviously, he was a two-weight world champion. But I remember when he fought Vitaly Klitschko. Do you remember watching that?
Yes, it was terrible.
He looked like a small kid.
Yes, he did. He lost to Artur Szpilka. He lost to Eric Molina. He did have a win over Fred Cassie at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't actually be all that surprised if Thomas Adamek is Tyson Fury's comeback opponent.
Or he faces David Haye or Tony Bellew.
Yeah, possibly, but he doesn't have a title, so I don't think they'd go after him. But he could be one of Tyson Fury's 4 comeback fights.
I hope not.
It's possible. It would be bad, but it's possible. It's more. At least Thomas Adamek has had a name in the sport.
Oh yeah.
Compared to some of the guys that they were fucking lining up, Gary Cornish. It'd be a better fight than Gary Cornish. Let's put it that way, wouldn't it?
Anything.
Anything would be better than Gary Cornish. He is still in the top 15 of the BoxRec heavyweight ranking.
I saw Gary Cornish's last fight about a month ago.
Yeah.
Against David Howe. In 1 round win.
Yes, I saw. I did see that he won. I didn't actually see the fight though. I'm going to type in Gary Cornish.
Do you want me to tell you how many times it took him he knocked David Howe down 4 times before they stopped the fight?
Yeah, that's funny. That's because Gary Cornish doesn't have a lot of power, but David Howe has absolutely no chin. David Howe needs to retire now. He's coming off like back-to-back knockouts with real shit wins in between them. I think for his own safety, like he got knocked out by Gary Cornish and then he got knocked out by Cash Ali. I think it's probably time for him to pack it in now. He's 14 wins, 8 losses. At one point, David Howe was like a fairly touted prospect, but then he took a real bad fucking loss to a 1-3 guy. And ever since then, he's lost to Dorian Darch, Nathan Gorman, David Allen, Daniel Dubois, James. It's bad showing. So, yeah, I think David Howe needs to pack it in, but that's a different topic. As for Adamek and Masternak, Masternak's fucking well old. Masternak is 30, but he's had 45 fights, 45 professional fights. Once you hit 50 fights, you're done. You are done because you just had, even if you're not old, he's only 30. How the fuck has he had 45 fights in that
God
time?
knows. God
That's
knows.
impressive, actually. That is impressive because a lot of 30-year-olds have had like 28 fights. That's kind of about right, isn't it?
Yeah.
But 45 fights by the time that takes a lot of wear on the body. So even Masternak's, I don't really see him as a threat in the cruiserweight division anymore. Tony,
Definitely.
he's the guy. Tony Bellew beat Masternak, didn't he?
Only
Yeah,
just.
yeah, yeah. Only just, but he still did beat him. It's a good fight, actually. I remember that fight. But yeah, so that was some interesting stuff, bringing us nicely onto Bellew. Hey, gloves are off
Oh
too.
God.
Did you watch this?
This was painful. It was painful to watch.
It was
Oh
it
dear.
was a torture session for David Hay. It was like
It really
watching
was.
someone put David Hay under the thumb screws. Like Tony Bellew has got his number mentally. David Hay was trying to present a calm, composed face to the cameras, but it
Yeah.
cracked and it slipped so many times. He even talked about it himself, like, "Oh, you almost reeled me in there, Tony." Like you could see Tony Bellew was winding him up so much. David
So,
Hay wanted to say some real nasty shit, but he just bit his tongue, bit his lip. He looked like his eyes looked like they were filling up with tears at different points. Maybe I'm imagining that, but his eyes
no,
really
you
did
weren't
look.
imagining it.
No, fair enough. I'm glad it's not just me then, because he looked like he wanted to cry at different points. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was
Do you know what I
really weird.
found hard to watch? That this is a man that beat one of the tallest heavyweight champions in history, had a unification fight with Vladimir Klitschko. He didn't look like he wanted to be in there.
No, he really, really didn't look like he wanted to be in there. I want to know when that was filmed, because if it was filmed recently, I worry for David Hay in this fight, and it might well have been because he only puts his hair into braids and plaits when he's in the like ready for fight mode. So I think it was a fairly recent, maybe like a month ago, 4 weeks
Yeah,
ago, something like that. And he does not seem in a good headspace, in my opinion.
he should have taken a warm fight before this, I believe.
I don't think Belly would have let him. I'm not sure because he's already wasted a year of Bellew's career, as Bellew
Uh,
pointed
but
out.
this whole fight, there's a part of me that thinks I can't be bothered with this fight. I know I shouldn't say that, but I just can't. I can't get up for it after the first disappointment. The first fight was good.
I'm
I'm not
excited.
sure I can take it.
I'm excited for it because
Bellew's going to win. He's going to knock him out. That's what I think.
uh, for me, it's quite a close fight. If Hay
It's
comes in,
close.
if Hay comes in properly fit, focused, and ready,
He'll win.
he can win this fight. Tony Bellew is I like Tony Bellew a lot, but he's
So do I.
overachieved massively in his career. And
But
I don't like to pick against Bellew ever because he's proved me wrong too many times. But if Hay gets into that ring and he's not got any pre-existing injuries or anything
he'll win.
goes wrong,
Yeah,
he should win. He should
he
win.
should.
But I'm not sure his body can
I think Tony, from looking at the body
maintain it.
language, Tony knows he's got his number. He knows he's got going to be, and he knows he's going to knock him out. He's so confident, isn't he? Have you noticed how confident Bellew is from the first fight?
Yeah, and you should be like, oh, I think
But
I think you should be once you have a big win like that, you should be confident. But what
but
surprised
isn't
me more than anything was David Hay's reluctance to.
to engage? Yeah,
Yeah, he was just sort of. Tony Bellew was saying stuff that was true, and it was winding up David Hay, and David Hay was just like, "Yeah, you got me there," and it was embarrassing to watch at times. It was sort of painful. I didn't. It
but
wasn't. It was
when I look
uncomfortable.
when I look back at how David Hayes made Audley Harrison feel, it's comeuppance, isn't it? All the other guys, he
A
did it.
hun-
It serves him
100%.
right.
What comes around
Start.
goes around. 100%. 100%. I don't feel too sorry for him. Um, but at the same time, it's just odd viewing. It's weird because David Hayes always been the brash, outspoken, loudmouth,
Yeah.
crazy motherfucker, and in this,
But
you can tell he's having to play a person he's not.
I just feel that his head's in so many different facets that he really on his mind. He's thinking of the money for this fight, but he's also thinking about Joe Joyce and other things.
I think so
I don't think
too.
it's not about him anymore, and he knows that.
Well, he
And I
needs.
think that's the problem.
I think the problem is, he started the promotional career expecting to win the first fight with Tony Bellew, and if he'd
Mm,
have won, he'd have had big money from that, and he'd have got a big payday from AJ, and he could have used that money to build the promoting career, right? But instead,
yeah,
he lost that fight, and that's why he had to take the rematch because he needs
yeah,
to win this to get the big payday to retire and just promote.
yeah.
And I think
But
that's exactly what he's looking for.
this is his last fight. Whatever happens, I believe this is his last fight.
I think if he wins by knockout early, he'll get the AJ fight.
He'll fight, and then he can retire.
Yeah. And
As a part of me, I'd like.
he'll lose badly in the AJ fight,
Yeah,
in my opinion, because
but I'd like to see it. I
he's
would
quite
like to see it.
I'd like to see it 5 years. I'd like to see it
Yeah, 5 years, three,
from
4
the
years ago.
height of 5 years ago, but
Yeah,
not. I don't think it's a really competitive fight now. Not really.
but could you imagine? Obviously, it's not a competitive fight, but obviously Joshua would have Klitschko's name, Parker's name, Hayes'
Hayes.
name.
It
That's a
is a
good.
big.
That's a good.
It is still a big name fight, and you know what? As a voluntary defense,
It'd be great.
It's still a good fight. So you can't argue with it too much. If he's to fight Povetkin, Hay, then Wilder,
Yeah,
that's a real good set of names to have on
but
your record, isn't it?
I
So
have to believe myself that if Hay was to fight uh, Joshua, it'd be over in 2 rounds. That's what I think. In 1 or 2 rounds,
I think it
two,
would be
two,
over. I think it would
two,
probably be
two,
like
3 rounds.
I don't know. I think Hay could hang for 6 rounds. It depends on how his body holds up. It also
But
depends on what happens in this Bellew fight. If he wins, but it's a grueling points decision,
yeah,
he might not get the AJ fight because people won't be calling for it. I mean,
but if Bellew,
if Hay struggles to
yeah,
beat a cruiserweight, then people won't want to see their
but
AJ
if
fight.
Hay was to cause a massive shock and win the fight in say 2 rounds, then Anthony Joshua's watching the fight, he'll call Joshua out, and
Yeah,
then that'll
he
be the
will.
next fight.
It'll be a good fight, but
Which
it's just a bit too
be a
late for
complete
Hay.
mismatch. It's a big mismatch, isn't it? Wouldn't it? When I look at it on paper, when I hear Hay say he wants to do this, he wants to do that, I'm just thinking, I don't even think you're going to make it out of the ring in one piece without an arm dropping off or something. I
We'll
just don't see
see,
it.
won't we? It is an odd one. I think Bellew. I make Bellew a slight favourite, but I
Yeah,
can see that Hay could still win this fight. It's not.
I just don't see it. I think
Mm,
he's got a chance, but I just think he'll get injured or he'll come out with some excuse.
yeah, well, it
I
could
just think
happen.
he's
This
full
is
of
the
it.
problem. But this is the problem with Hay. At the same time, all of that could happen, but he could still have one last punch in him,
But
and
but do
that's
you
where
get
it
the
gets
feeling with?
rocky.
But are you like me? You get the feeling with how everybody's just bored of him. The rubbish he talks, the overbearing bullying stuff. We've seen it before.
Yeah, I think
Like,
Bellew did school him in that gloves are off,
oh,
man.
he made him look like a little kid.
Where he said, if you were coming back for a title, why didn't you take the Wilder fight or the Parker fight? And
Exactly.
it's a good question
But
because he had those
we know the
options,
answer. We know the answer.
and he didn't, and Hay didn't answer, and that was telling. He didn't want to give an answer. So yeah, it was a good watch, but it was painful at times too. I feel a bit sorry for Hay, but as you
But
say,
did
it
you
is
also
kind of
notice?
karma.
Did you also notice that when Johnny Nelson was asking David Hay a question, Tony Bellew would answer it for him,
Yeah, it was funny.
which I thought was, it reminds me of like being at school.
Well, it also
where
reminded me of something David Hay would have done in the past, though. That's the
yeah,
truth of it. David Hay would have done that for Chisora, for Fury, he would have been similar. So it's hard to. I'm not angry at Bellew for that. I thought it was witty and funny, but it was sort of schoolyard banter. We do have a quick little extra few things to discuss this week.
what's that?
There's quite a lot of fights on next week. So Jarrell Miller
Oh God,
fighting Johan Duhaupas.
yeah,
Jesse Magdaleno is fighting Isaac Dogbo. Don't know who that is. I know who Magdaleno is, but I
yeah.
don't know who Dogbo is. Kerman
Katie Taylor.
Lezaraga is fighting Bradley Skeet. Good fight for Bradley Skeet. I think that's a world title fight, is it not?
Is that is Bradley Skeet in
Oh,
America?
it's vacant EBU welterweight. It's no, I think it's on but that'll be on Box Nation, I imagine. And Daniel Jacobs is obviously fighting Makiej Selecki, which is a decent enough fight. I don't know much about Selecki, but I've looked at his record, and it's not as bad as I thought it was. He beat Santino Jr., Daryl Cunningham, Jack Colkay. He's got some all right wins on his record, though he's never been in a 12-round fight. His longest fight is a 10-round fight. So that's interesting.
Crazy, isn't it? Really?
It is a bit odd to have only had 10 rounders up until your 26th fight, but maybe he's got some stamina issues, so they've not wanted to expose him to 12 rounds yet.
So I'm going to pick a winner for this fight. I'm going to pick Danny Jacobs to win on points.
I think he might stop this guy. I think he might win by knockout. I think.
Then I'm going to pick Jarrell Miller to beat Duhaupas in 8 rounds, 8 or 9 rounds.
Yeah, I think so too. He'll probably stop him 7, 8, or 9. That's my prediction too for the Miller fight. My prediction for Jacobs is he'll probably stop this Selecki guy. Selecki's KO ratio is 38%, so I think Daniel Jacobs will walk through him at some point, and he's really a career 154 fighter. He's had a few fights at 160, but he's even had a fight at 168. But he's listed as a super welterweight, so he's probably not the biggest 160, and he clearly doesn't have a lot of power for a 160. So yeah, I think Jacobs will walk through him at some point in the fight. Katie Taylor, yeah, I predict her to beat Victoria Nuella Bustos. This Bustos chick isn't terrible. It's probably Katie Taylor's. Well, no, that Sanchez fighter was Katie Taylor's probably best fight, but this is probably next best. This is for the IBF.
How many fights has Katie Taylor had now?
This is
7 fights.
This is her 9th fight.
And she, oh Jesus!
But this girl, I believe she has one of the 2. Oh no, she's not. She's not got a title. Katie Taylor's got both the titles. No,
Katie Taylor's a double. No, she's
no. Yeah, so this woman, Victoria Nuella Bustos, is the IBF champion. So this is a unification. So it's a good fight for Katie Taylor. Get the second belt, move up in the kind of belt tally and sort of move on in her career. It's not a bad fight at all. So yeah, it's a decent little weekend of action. Jesse Magdaleno, he's the guy that lost to who did he lose? No, he's never lost.
He beat Donaire for the title.
Yeah, he beat Donaire. Dogbo, 18-0. Why have I not heard of this Dogbo geezer? Oh, he's from Ghana. Fights out of Ghana.
Well, to me, look, has he ever fought outside of Ghana much?
In New Zealand, he's fought a few times in America, very, very early on in his career when he was a nobody. Then he went back to Ghana. Then he fought in New Zealand, and he's had some big wins. So he beat Cesar Juarez, who's an all right fighter. It's not a bad fight, but I would expect Jesse Magdaleno to win fairly comfortably. Yeah. It does seem like a fairly.
Have you noticed a lot of these Ghanaian fighters? There's just something about African fighters, isn't there? Some of them, they
They don't
can't
have
put
the
my finger.
same. They don't have the same level of training, gym equipment. There's a lot of stuff to do with that. I think you find someone like Zolani Tete, and that's a rare. He's got all the skills. He's been schooled the right way in every aspect. A lot of the African boxers. Do you remember who was it that in Dongo, for example, he had
Oh
power.
God, yeah.
He had power, but that was all he had, and so he got exposed at the top level. I
The
kind
only
of imagine.
person I can say African fighter that was ever exceptional was Azuma Nelson.
Yeah, well, I think
And that's
Tete's
Tete,
pretty
yeah.
exceptional as well. He's just not in the big fights to show it at the moment. But yeah, I think there's some good African fighters. I think the biggest problem is availability of boxing trainers. How many top elite world class trainers are there in Ghana? I'm sure there's some.
Probably hardly.
I'm sure there's some, but there's not. It's not the same as being out in
But
LA
what I'm saying
or
is, whenever
being.
we've seen African fighters here, like that guy, that Ricky Burns, Prince of Foot, oh dearie me.
Yes, there's been some bad ones too. These guys, they get built up in their home country fighting terrible opposition.
Against Fluff,
But
yeah.
to be fair, this guy, he has fought some decent opposition. He's fought in New Zealand. He did do some of his building fights in America. So maybe he's had a better schooling than most. We just don't know. He holds the WBO World Super Bantamweight title, so he's obviously, it's not some joke. He beat Cesar Juarez for it, so he's obviously all right. I just don't know a lot about Dogbo. I think I've heard the name before, but I don't. I'm not. I can't be certain of it.
Dogbo. What kind of a name is that? Dear me.
It is an odd name, but I'm not going
Jeez.
to.
Come here, Mr. Dogbone. You've just lost.
Dogbo,
Dear
Dogbo, not
Dogbo.
Bone.
Dogbo.
Yeah, Isaac Dogbo, brave son. Good luck to him. I hope it's a good fight. I predict Jesse Magdaleno to win mostly because I've seen more of him. But it's one of those fights where really they've got equal level wins. Nonito Donaire is probably a bit better than Cesar Juarez, but it's not miles different. So yeah, for me it's an interesting fight. I do look forward to that one. There's some other good fights on. Jarrell Miller versus Duapar. We need Jarrell Miller to look good in that fight so that the AJ fight is still, if he struggles against Duapar, no one's going to want to see the AJ fight. Maybe they'll want to see Miller versus White, but you've got to look good beating people like Duapar for people to want to see you fight AJ or Wilder. So
we'll see what happens. I mean, it's like one of them things, Duapar's had a tough career.
He has. He's 37. He's pretty much done by now. I mean, I know he's had some comeback wins against the likes of Nuful Wotar and Egavini Orlov, but these are not guys at the top of the division.
But that Povetkin knockout, that was brutal.
It was. I know he was coming off a win over Robert Helenius as well, but that knockout, and the knockout against Wilder wasn't pretty. It was, it wasn't terrible, but he's had a lot of tough losses. He also lost to Tepper on points.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so Francesco Pianata as well. So he's had some big fights. I mean, he's had a good career, Duapar, really, but I think his time's over now, and Jarrell Miller's probably going to smash him up quite badly. That's my prediction.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, so we've got a good action next week.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be back probably this time next week to discuss that. If there's any fights we've missed, we are sorry, but there's just been so much action this weekend.
Who's this Joey Dorco you're on?
Right, he got a draw with Gerald Miller really early in Gerald Miller's career. That's why I went on his look. He got a
Jeez.
draw with Gerald Miller over 4 rounds,
That's crazy.
and it is weird. He's and since then he's actually gone on to, I mean, not beat top guys, but he's 19-4 now, and he's got a fight with Bryant Jennings. So
I don't think he'll win that.
no,
You
Bryant
never know.
Jennings. Bryant Jennings should beat him, but you do never know.
Bryant Jennings
if
is a
Joey
born fighter.
if Joey Duvashko somehow beats Bryant Jennings, I want to see the rematch with Jarrell Miller.
Have you noticed? Oh dear. Have you noticed with what's his name, with Bryant Jennings? He can't crack an egg. And when I saw his last fight, it took him 4 rounds to knock some guy who
I
got
remember.
taken around by less foot. It's ridiculous.
He's the least powerful heavyweight in the division, in my opinion. I agree, but he does have some skill. He is still a good boxer. I do. I don't mind. I don't mind.
You wouldn't.
Bryant Jennings
You
too
wouldn't
much.
give him much of a chance against White, would you?
No, but it'd be a decent. It would be a good test for White because he is still a slick boxer. He sort of reminds me of the Devon Alexander of heavyweight. He can box and he can move, but he's got no power, and that's a problem at heavyweight. A big problem at heavyweight. Big problem. You get fucked up when you got no power at heavyweight. People will walk you down. But yeah, it's interesting that fight came up by me. I only found out about that Brian Jennings fight because he drew with Jarrell Miller early in his career. How weird is that? Little bit of breaking news there for everyone. Bryant Jennings is fighting an absolute bum, but yeah, someone that Jarrell Miller fought in his second fight or something like that. Oh dear, gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. Right, man. We'll wrap it up for this week. It was a good, productive session, and look forward to the action next week. Peace out, everybody.